We're going into the winter, 1942 turn. We added 40 BRPs to the American BRP level. In this turn, they were allowed to add to their force pulls. So the force pulls over here with the Americans are this section here are the eliminated units, so you can only buy so many of those back, but this is all units that have been added. We've been added 3 light carriers, most importantly, which I want to get on the board as soon as possible, and extra naval air units, so we're going to keep bringing the naval air units on anyways. So the Americans will take their turn over here. Just showing you the movement now. The counter air goes like this. Like this, why this task force is going to move over to this port. That's what we got. There are 4 there, and there's 2 here. I'm only going to use 1 plane, so if the Japanese beat me in the air battle, they can still come out and attack this task force, but I'll go ahead and deal with whatever they have left there. This task force is moving over to here. So that's what I want. And I'm leaving that 1 Australian ship there in case this target, case Cairns is the next target. That's why I brought in aircraft. I moved aircraft from the Australian box and this infantry right here. We're going to help defend that. So I need to defend this side while I'm getting offensive units to this side. Anyways, we'll go to the, just showing you the movement now. The counter air goes like this. Like this, why this task force is going to move over to this port. That's what we got. He isn't going to be able to reach. And let's do the counter air. So the attacks go as this. The counter airs worked great. I eliminated 1 Japanese aircraft there to no loss to mine. And here he outnumbered me by 1, so he got to add 1's dice, but I still beat him. And he lost both his aircraft, and I only lost 1. So that's too close to his task force. I want to hit over here, and I just don't have the power to take that. I have no aircraft. I needed to get my task force on this side and succeed in that. From here, he can't reach this. The only place he can bomb me is here, and I can outbuild him in an aircraft right there. So no offensive in the southeast front, just a limited one that we did there, and that's it. We're going to really wish, as Americans, I could have done some over here, but I just couldn't. Too risky. Anyways, I have 7 initial deployments. I brought 2 down to the Pacific, a carrier and a fleet. I brought a 5-3 aircraft in for 3. And then I brought 1 and 2 carriers in, so it's 5 initial deployments, and that's all I can use over here. Then I can use up to like 8 SRs over here. I didn't even use that many. I brought the 2 Americans I had here shifted to here. The airplanes went to here. The air base is allowed to be moved 1 time a turn. Oh, I put it there, so the air base and the planes came to here for 2. The unit that was in the South Pacific box, it moves to the Australian box. That doesn't count as an SR. So 2. Then I brought 2 ships, a CVE, and a 5-3 aircraft over here. So that's 3 more for 5. And they went around this way, up through this way, and right into that task force. He tried to stop it. He needed a 1, and he failed. And I didn't use any magic. So as far as he knows, I don't have magic. He don't really know. But with all this now, I might as well show it. I've got 10 Army air factors sitting here now protecting Cairns. My task force is there, and I can fly these over to here next turn and start attacking out. So and I'm building up the fleets, the ships. I brought in 10 ships and 3 CVEs to go into Task Force 1. So the buildup is definitely happening. We'll see how it goes. This side, I spent $110 on builds. So this side I built a few units, and I was allowed to bring in 2 for initial deployment. So I brought in 1 ship and 1 plane right there to England. That's all I can bring in on this side. Remember, I still got the 2 Americans here. For the British, I spent 10 BRPs and just built over here. Even though the British haven't gone yet, I went ahead and did their side over here. They built 1 Indian unit that can go back in there. They're allowed to build 3 infantry or replacements here, and they did. So they're in the Indian box. Then the airplane gets built over here in Britain, and 1 Australian ship gets built over here in Britain. During the SR phase, it's allowed to SR to the boxes. So it counts as 2 SRs off the British, off the European side. I want 1 to go in India, and the Australian ship to go in Australia. So 1 in India, and 1 in Australia. So that's 2 SRs for the British on this side. And we're going to go ahead, because Americans are done over there and the British. We took an attrition here. We killed 1 Japanese unit. So we're going to go ahead and do the British and the Americans and the Russians on this side next. One thing I want to mention is Russians only have 20 BRPs. They would love to really start taking an offensive on the Germans and punching through their lines, but they can't spend 15 BRPs and then only buy 5 BRPs worth of troops back. They just won't have it. They need to attrition again and build everything they can and keep the line going. I'm still happy with the way the Russian front is. According, if I were the Russians, the Germans haven't been able to break through deep up in the north, although they're getting there up there, and I'm going to have to block that up there. But Russians will attrition and then build their 20 BRPs worth. Down here, the British, we're going to set up, maybe even try to go into Sicily this term, but we're going to set up for an invasion to get Italy to surrender next year. Uneventful. Our attrition killed a few, took a hex back here to draw up that river line, and built 20 BRPs worth. So that's the way the Russian front looks right now. And remember, we finished the Pacific side, the Americans and the Chinese. The British are done, so it's the Axis turn. Now the Japanese, I'm really tempted to continue down in this area because he's still got SRs directly from Pearl. I can't stop him from getting in here. He counter-aired my air. Took that out. So the only way to do it is to get me some bases here and move my fleet over in this direction. But I can still move the fleet in this direction and cut it off without invading that. And remember, I need to attack Russia right now. My original plan is to help Germany. We got Russia broke. I think I should continue with the original plan and not do this yet. I think the Japanese, and they're going to spend $30, $35 to declare war, $15 for an offensive on this entire front. It just makes sense for me to attack Russia up here. The entire Asian front, now the half of the Japanese army that's usually just sitting there doing nothing can now start fighting, attacking, and put pressure on the Chinese and the Russians. Why, I think I've got enough handled here. I'm going to beef up this area a little bit, and that's it. So I think the winter turn is going to be anticlimactic here, because I really don't want to take an offensive out here. I could just do a limited offensive and make it an invasion. But I don't want to overextend myself too. I can already tell I'm searching for troops as it is right now. So I think I'm okay with the extension here. We need to defend this. He was almost deciding to come in this area because I don't have the troops there. So I'm not going to overextend there. That's what we'll do. Declare war, offensive option in the Asian front. Our attrition's down on this side, in the southeast front. The thing the Japanese are going to do is, one thing the Japanese are going to do is they're going to roll for their research varied occupation policies. Now let's see what we get. Exceed in a +9 for the research for Japanese varied. I've been saving and putting in for it for the whole time. So I just rolled a 3, but I got a +6 to it. It's basically the same thing the Germans get there. The nationalists cannot build any partisans now, so I don't have to worry about that. The communists build 2 fewer partisans, so I'll still have to deal with communist partisans. But if I take the communist capital, Yenin, the Russians have to pay for anything the communists do now. They just can't build troops, and they just can't take offensives. So I'll go ahead and deal with that. And that's why I want Yenin. So I'm going to start attacking on the wide front. Now, one thing I haven't been doing every turn is the Chinese have a resistance table. At the end of every turn, you're supposed to be checking this Chinese resistance table. I haven't really been doing it because when things are status quo like this, it's not a huge difference. So, but we'll start checking it now that I'm attacking, and we could change things. Anyways, the Japanese, after declaring war, taking an offensive there, they only have 10 BRPs left. That's why good decision not to do anything down here. So we're going to take that objective from Russia, and we're going to try to take Yenin, and we're going to do an attack down here. We're going to start pushing everywhere we can. And it allows me to build 3 pro-Chinese units, 1-2 units. So we'll get on with the attack. I'll come back when the Japanese winter turn is complete. Just noticed, and I'm forgetting that over on this board, see on that board it don't matter. In this board, zone of controls do not extend across rivers. So I might have to do a little change in my initial setup of my armor units just to make sure we cover Zok. It may be a little difficulty there, but it's not impossible. So watch the setup there to make sure you cover everything, even across the rivers. Turn is done. Took a 2-to-1 here, clean kill. 2-to-1 on Yenin, clean kill here. I rolled an exchange. I lost 5 infantry, but I still took it. Naval movement, I split up my task force. Now remember, the Americans won't know what I got. I got task force 1, 3, and 2 down here. I sent a 4th ship down here. I SR'd a 2-2 off of here to cover that. The builds that I was able to build 10 BRPs, pro-Chinese units to cover objectives, while the Japanese will do the attacking. The tie's going here because I'm going to constantly protect Singapore. And then the other SRs, I beefed up these 2 spots right here, defended these 2. So these 3 got stuff. The air base moved here to cover any kind of, if he wanted to fight, we would get into another one here. And again, I'm putting myself where I have the advantage. So I wasn't able to, I would like to get something on Rabaul still, and I still need to beef up this a little and that, but I got troops over there, but not very many. So we'll see how that turns out. So the Japanese turn is ended for winter, and we did get varied occupation policies. The German, we have the winter die roll to make for the Russian front. See what it, for each successive winter you get a -1 because the Germans will get more and more prepared, and plus I have a -1 on my research, so -2 off this dice. We rolled a 5, goes down to a 3. 3 on the Russian winter die roll says Axis units may not conduct limited offensives, they may not do offensive options, they may not overrun and exploit. So did it say offensive options? The Axis may not select offensive options. So the Russians are saved. That's a big save for them on the winner. All they can do is attrition now, the Axis. So the Axis are going to set up, defend, and get ready for the Russians to do something. Russians can try to make a push. Well, they have a decent amount of army right there. They can take an offensive option, then build stuff and start going. We'll see, but basically that saves them, because the next spring turn they get all their money back and they're going to buy all that stuff pretty much and get it on the board. So that might be the extent of the German army. We'll see. They got to hold out. We got to hold out on Italy. And so the Italians will take an attrition, just build what they have. So everybody in this winter turn is pretty much licking their bruises and sores and getting ready for the new year, 1943. So let's take the Axis turn in Europe. Basically just short up their line. They're going to take the attrition there. I'm going to add them up. We finished here. We did all our builds. Everything's set. Just beefed up here, defending. Now, the only thing I did do is I shifted some ships. Since the British used their ships to SR, they didn't have any. I shifted some ships up here and a plane. So I adjusted for the Merrimack's convoy. Now, but just in case the Americans get any idea of using the Merrimack's route, in case the Russians are going too broke, I sent 2 subs up there. I sent a 2-4 airplane and 7 ships into Bergen, just in case he tries to use the Merrimack's route this time. So we did the SW warfares, minimal damage, and that's it. Our 42 winter is complete. So the year start sequence is complete. And I'll just discuss the Americans real quick. Now remember, the Americans' BRP base and their growth went up by 10 and 20 and then 40 points, depending on if they were at war or not. So how that all worked out. And then whatever BRPs they have left on the winter turn is simply what they start with in January. So the winter turn of 42, they were left with 210 BRPs. That's a growth rate. Now, in 1943, they're going to do the year start sequence normally. So now they take that, they multiply by their growth rate of 50, and it comes out to 105. So 105 plus 210, they now have a base of 315. They're not adding anything to it. They lose 10 for the Philippines. They're going to start with 305. So what's going on here is the Axis actually have 100 more BRPs than the Allies do. That means the Axis are going to go take another turn. That's 2 turns in a row. Now, do the Axis want it? I looked at it. If I was the Axis, the Italians don't want it. The Germans, it ain't really going to help. I mean, because it's spring, they can't do any exploitation or overrun, so they're just going to kill a lot of Russian units. The Japanese could use it. They may try to attack the American carriers in Cairns, or they'll just bolster their defense. So they can burn BRPs enough to let the Allies take a turn, but then they'd be burning 100 BRPs, and you can't take the BRPs from Japanese because they need it. You can't take the BRPs from, well, the Italians, you could probably take 40 or 50 BRPs from them because they really don't need any. They're just going to defend their homeland. Then you'd have to burn about another 50 or so from the Germans. But then you're always going to be playing down to the American side, and then the downfall to that is giving the Allies 2 turns in a row. Is that going to hurt you? So that decision, I'll let you know what we decide, but the Axis could be going first here. My decision with the Japanese is to either hit Cairns with the new turn and go after trying to strike these carriers here. If the carriers stay in port, then I don't risk losing my carriers, but I'm going to lose some aircraft, and that's a lot of elite aircraft to lose, and I think I may get one carrier, maybe two. I don't think I'm going to do it. Even though it's very tempting, I'm still working offensive there, and I can't be taking two offensives and two fronts, not with the money I have and all the debt I need to buy. So it's just another opportunity to build up. I think I'm good here. I left the task force here last turn, so I can reinforce that with some SRs. I think I'm going to move this task force, goes right here, and then I'm ready for a new battle. So that's what I'll do. So the Americans go up 40 BRPs this turn, and they draw their magic. They ended up with 2 magic points this time, because we done the research and the diplomacy phase. Research, the Americans got an extra code breaking result, which brought them back up to 3. The Japanese went for code breaking again to keep bringing them down, but they missed. So the Americans got 3 again. And the diplomatic phase, the Allies went for Egypt to get rid of the partisans there, so they don't have to worry about partisans sneaking up on them, and they succeeded. The Axis didn't even bother it. So over here on the Russian front, the Germans, it's springtime. The Germans cannot do any overruns or exploitation, so they're just going to kill as many Russian units as they can, keep them on the run. They don't have anything to build. They researched jets and got them. There's 2 jets in their force pool, so we'll just go with that. So far, things are working out for the Axis. This is what I'm hoping, keeping them on the run. We're starting 1943, and the only success the Allies are having are right here in Africa. And that's where they need to really exploit it and get into Italy as quick as they can. So, it'll be the Axis turn. We increased everybody's force pulls that were supposed to be increased too. The Germans are on the attack, and they're just trying to kill. They're not killing that many Russians, but trying to do what we can. However, I'm trying to take Leningrad right now. It's a 1-to-1 attack. And I'm going to show you this. Usually I'm going through the combat, but I want you to watch this. And I have an extra exchange bait. And it's a 4. That is a total exchange. The Germans, with their extra turn, didn't kill a lot of Russian units. Only this section right there. But they took a 1-to-1 on Leningrad, you seen, and took it. They had quite a bit of dead. They had like 350 some BRPs. They're down to 293 with all the builds. I didn't even build the jets or the ship that I wanted to, and with their offensive. So they're spending quite a bit of money. And this is the problem with taking that turn flip-flop. If the Allies start the next turn with more money, then the Russians are going to go twice. So that's why the Germans keep backing up everything they have with tanks here. But Leningrad is down. That's another factory destroyed. That's why we got the Japanese taking the objectives over there. We want to hurt the Russians on their resistance table. Italians don't do anything. They got tons of money, nothing to do with it right now. Tell you what, they're going to take 10 off, do a limited offensive, attack the British air. And the British air don't wish to go through builds, so they decline. And the British air don't wish to go through the builds, so they decline the combat. But what it does is it takes that air out of any invasion they want to do, and it takes the Italian air out, but oh well, we'll see how it goes. So the Axis are done on this side. And we'll move to the Japanese front. Russia immediately loses the BRPs it received for that factory. The Germans destroyed it. They lose 20 BRPs right now. So that's already 20 BRPs down. We're going to keep hitting the Russians hard there. Now for the Japanese turn, one of the favorite tricks that the Allies use on the turn flip-flop in the regular game, not the global war game, is they get 2 turns. So they send out their task force and they strike Japanese task force and attack it. And then on the turn flip-flop, it's reduced. Then it goes out and conquers and does things or attacks it again. So the Japanese are thinking about doing the same thing. They have an opportunity of striking this and hitting the American task force, maybe sinking another carrier. I think the Japanese would rather, they're getting a double turn. Our game plan is to keep attacking up here. We got Russia on the run. We need to get that other objective from them. We need to do offensives here in China. So they don't have a ton of money. If we pull an offensive here, they got a lot to build. I don't think I want to take another offensive down here. I don't really think I need it. I'm ready to battle him to what he's got. I mean, he does have a carrier coming right there, but that's a light carrier. So I think we're slowly passing the initiative to the Americans, but that's just part of my game plan. So we're going to make this decision right now. It's the spring of 43. This may cost me, it may not. We'll see. So the Japanese finished their builds. They left that. Those 2 carriers are the ones that were sunk. So they haven't bought them. They have that left. They'll continue. They did an exploitation here. Broke through on the Russian front. And they're going to continue to destroy that Russian fleet because it won't have anywhere to go. And they're attacking in China. Our attrition on this front. Now here we built up. Here. Now the Japanese have to supply. For these planes to be able to search in the American turn, they have to be in supply. So supply is running into these areas. The Americans aren't contesting these. And the Japanese have to run supply right here to get this and this to work. So they have to announce where's the supply coming from. Force 3 that was on truck, because truck is an unlimited supply source. Task Force 3 had 9 fleets in it. That's it. So we had to break down the 9 fleet. There's no more task force there. It shows the Americans that Task Force 3 didn't have carriers. So he knows the carriers are here or here. But he has to run supply to supply this plane, this task force, and this plane. So he's taken 2 ships here and 2 ships here to protect the supply line. Now the Americans can attempt to cut that supply either through this or with submarines. They're going to let these supplies go, and the Americans decide to let the supply go through there. So the Japanese' turn is done. They beefed up all this area. They're allowed to build a fort. They put it on truck. This whole area got beefed, and they put some more troops here to get ready to go back into China. The Americans' turn. The Americans, I had a guy for the entire year of 1943 I was playing. All he did was sit here and build up the Americans, and then he attacked. I don't like doing that. But to come in and attack an area where he has good search modifiers. This is how I set up Americans or Japanese. I put all these search modifiers here. It helps you in the battle, as long as you can keep it supplied. And the Japanese task force is going to win a carrier battle in here. I won't have much of a chance. So I did force them to come this side. So now as the Americans, I'm going to do what I didn't want to do, and I'm going to have to attack this side. And this is where the Japanese really would rather Americans attack. But either way, whether I go through here and cut the oil supply in this area, or I come through this way and cut the oil supply through the Philippines, or I can get a bombing base up here, that's what I want to do. So I think I'm going to come in this side. Port Moresby is too strong for me to hit at this time. I think I'm going to check it out. If I can't take that back, I'm going for Guadalcanal. And if I can start here and start getting air power on these islands, I can start working my way here. So that's what I'm going to look at. I'm going to come back this way because I have a feeling this is his best task force, not this one. And we're going to see. So I'm going to go back to this side. That's one thing I like in Australia. I can come around either side, and the Japanese, they can't really watch both sides. So me as a Japanese player, you're going to want to protect your interest, and that's right here. Now this is where the game can get interesting. The Japanese can be faking me out, but me, that's my bread and butter, and that's where I'm going to keep it. I'll let the Americans come out here, and obviously, me as an American, that's what I got to do. I want to start fighting somewhere. I have to, so I'm going to come back to this side. I'll see if I can get that. If not, we're going for gold. So you see here, for all the Americans, or for all the Japanese are doing here, it hasn't been painstakingly for them. There was one great battle of the Coral Sea, and that was it. But other than that, they're doing what they want. Now, the Americans, even with that, are still allowed to move down here. They haven't been able to set up base way down here. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if we can have the Japanese task force, the entire task force based on this side and cutting off the onboard shipping. I've already discussed this. Because the Americans can always come around to the Australian box and into this side. Might be, you can't put them in range of all the planes. That's why I'm bringing all the land-based planes I can down here. If the Japanese try to base within range of these ports, I'm going to attack them with land-based planes. So that's why you got to stay away. But anyways, the Americans, I broke them down into 3 task force. I'd like to use task force every time you move out and you change bases, because the enemy doesn't know exactly what you might have there. The task force here came here and created 2 task force on the movement. On the movement, I created a air base there, and I'm counter-airing that 2-3. I shifted some planes here. Other than that, the invasion started with the entire force of Karens moving to Naomi, and they're invading Guadalcanal. This task force can intercept it. The plane, land-based plane that's based in Rabaul, is out of range. So, it's up to the task force. Do they want to intercept that? And I would say absolutely not if I was Japanese, because I know I only have 2 carriers. I think Guadalcanal, if I was Japanese, is where I want him to start. He's bringing everything he's got just to take that. Let him do it. So the ships that were in the Australian box, they moved up to here. The Japanese can't do anything about it. He can try to intercept with this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The Americans have magic. They can reduce that, or the Japanese have to come out and get within striking range of the land-based air, and the Japanese don't have any. So the Japanese are content keeping the Americans on the outside. So that's the Americans' movement and combat ready to go, and I'll come back when the combat is done. And that just completed the entire American strategic and unit construction phase. I chose not to bring the carriers down, and initially deployed 5 Army air factors, a Marine, which can overstack there, and this ship came in. I built what I could there, and I did 3 here. I did 5 Army air factors and 3 naval air factors of flexible deployment. They're going to go in the box, and they get to come to Australia next turn. This guy has to wait a 1 turn delay. He comes down to there, so he's outside the box. Next turn he'll go in the box, and then from there he can go into Australia. And then that was it for them. The Chinese did a little the Russians, they took an offensive. We killed that many Germans. We got to start killing Germans. Let's make them pay just like they're doing to us. It's time to pay. I spent a lot of their money. They built a lot of stuff. So we're getting forces, and we're going to keep destroying Germans from this point on. I rebuilt the stuff there. Just took an attrition in the Asian side. The British and Americans invaded Sicily at Messina, and at Syracuse, sorry, and they got an exchange. So I had to lose like a plane, 3 ships, and a infantry factor, but I'm still on there with 2 factors, and I'm going to keep coming at them. They chose not to intercept with their ships. They're probably saving them for the mainland. That's what I'm doing. I mean, Sicily, let them fight for Sicily. Remember, it's a stall game now. You're just making them pay. We want to end this war before they conquer Berlin. That's what you're looking for. Americans brought in troops here. They didn't build much because I did most of the building in the Pacific. The SW, the British lost 13 BRPs. They lost 4 SRs. And that's it. We did bomb, but the interceptors took down the bombers. We only destroyed 1 German BRP. You take the losses first, and even though the Americans researched strategic bombers, you're only allowed to implement 1 category at a time. So you have to start at the A9 level first, which would be constructions of strategic bombers permitted up to 10% of the year start sequence. We've already passed that. So your 1011 would be right here. There's no modification to the die roll. So next turn when I bomb, I'll go up to the next level, and then the next level, next level, next level, until I hit my 18 and 21 that I've already got. So that's why we're starting to bomb. And that's it, man.